One of the best ways you can connect with your audience as an entrepreneur is to create content. And when you can create compelling content that people go, hey, this looks really good, you got something going that can really help you in business. But it's not just a matter of creating content. What you've got to do is you've got to do it the right way. The idea of what we could do before is where we would just create something, record it, and then put it out there and sell it doesn't work. Well, there's a book out now that can really help you as a content creator to make sure you're doing it the right way and that you're getting the results you want. It's written by Nancy Giere, and Nancy is joining us right now from her offices out there in California. Nancy, welcome aboard.
Thanks so much, Terry. I'm really glad to be here today.
Yeah, and I love, by the way, I noticed just casually over your shoulder there is the logo for your brand new book that I have read twice. It is that good, everyone. This is a brilliant thing, and it's Bundle Your Brilliance. It's a way to put this together in a way that works and gets real information, because Nancy not only has done this a lot in the real world, she also has degrees in this, and she knows what to do and how to make it happen. Nancy, welcome aboard. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here.
Well, let's get started with I like to start at the big picture point of view first. Tell us what your book is about, what Bundle Your Brilliance is, and how that applies to content creation.
All right. Well, Bundle Your Brilliance, the tagline on it is turn your expertise into profitable online courses. And it's really about helping people to determine how they can monetize their intellectual property through creating a course. And here it is.
Yeah, there we go.
And I designed it so it takes people from idea all the way through to implementation. So you can really kind of walk through the whole process and get to a great result. And it's based on a methodology that I've been using really my whole career, which kind of goes back to when Al Gore invented the internet.
That was a while ago. One of the things I really like about your book, as I was going through it, it hit me. It's a step-by-step guide.
Yes.
Saying do this, then this, because a lot of us, we might know how to do this part, and then we know that part, and over here, and there's some gaps in there that we don't even know. So you've filled in those gaps. What kind of things come, again, from a big picture point of view, do you see are important in the entire process?
Well, the first thing that's really important is to be really clear on who your program is for. Just like any other product or service that you would put together, you want to be clear on your target market, or sometimes we refer to it as a target audience. Then you start to look at your content and come up with, okay, well, what does my audience need to be successful? And one of the fundamental questions that I encourage people to ask is, when they finish the program, what are they going to know that they didn't know before? What are they going to be able to do that they couldn't do before? And how are they going to feel? And you want to have that question just in front of you on a board, whatever, where you can see it, because that guides your process and it keeps shiny object syndrome at bay. You don't get distracted because you're like, this is what I'm focusing on. This is what I'm building. This is who I'm building it for. All this other great stuff, it can go on another list in another place to hit another day.
That's a very important point. Very important. Well, now we're seeing a lot of people that are using content as content creators, as Joe Polizzi talks about, content entrepreneurs, and we consider ourselves that as well. What trends do you see happening now in the real world in that whole field?
Well, one of the first trends that I'm seeing is people need to really be intentional about what they're creating and really think about, well, what is the delivery method that I'm going to use? And what are the constraints and opportunities with that method? So we have to be ready to deliver something in person. We have to be ready to deliver something on Zoom. And then to look at that information and say, what about this could I make as evergreen content? And right now, I think the larger play for people is to look at their business and who are they serving? Are they a consultant? Are they a coach? Are they a speaker? Are they a combination of all of those? And how can they take a course and have it integrate into what they do? So for example, a coach, when they're onboarding people, and a consultant too, they might be delivering the same information over and over and over again. Well, there's a good clue right there that you can extract that, turn it into an evergreen program that people can watch on their own. So then whether you're consulting or coaching, when you meet with them in a group or one-on-one, you can get to a deeper level more quickly because you've addressed that information. And by doing that, you've got a choice. You can serve more people, or you can have more time for yourself, or maybe even a little bit of both.
Yeah, which sounds nice. You've got that purpose. You're designing for that. I want to go a little bit more in depth on that about designing for the delivery method. You talk about this in the book. And again, one of the things I loved about it, you're going to have a different kind of design if you're doing, say, an audio product versus a video product versus something else. Tell us a little bit more about that and the considerations that we need to give that.
Well, let's just look at Zoom, which is where a lot of people are creating content now. And when you're on Zoom, you have the option of people can use the chat. So you can ask for reactions. Give me a 1, for yes, give me a 2 for no, or type in yes or no, or pose a question and everybody just types it in the chat very quickly. And if people know that they're going to be called upon, they're going to pay more attention because, oh, she might ask me a question. I better be ready. You can also put people into breakout rooms. You can use polling. So you've got these different options that come within Zoom. And you can also kind of branch out if you want to use tools, which I know you've talked about, like Mentimeter. That's another way that you can pull people, but the visual output, you've got more options than you do in Zoom. So for example, you could create a word cloud. I love using a product by Amy Clymer. They're Clymer cards. They're virtual cards. So people look at an image and you ask a question, how are you feeling at the start of their program today? And people could pick the image and then write something on the back. I feel like an ostrich because I've had my head in the sand for whatever, right? So it's a great way to kind of do a pulse check on the audience. And it's a bit more creative because you're bringing in those options. So, there's ways you can collaborate. Where the shift then happens is if you're thinking about doing something that's going to be evergreen, the biggest shift is you're not there to answer questions. You're not there to clarify. What were those instructions for the breakout? Or you can't do a breakout because people are working independently. But when you give people instructions for an activity, they have to be really clear because they can't ask a question if they're not quite sure what to do. And oftentimes people get frustrated and, the bots, they're not quite there yet in terms of being able to answer really the question that people have. I did something the other day in this tool that I'm trying out about how do you change colors? And it came back, there are many colors that you can choose from. Yes, I know that. How do you change? It couldn't quite, the connection between what I was asking and what the bot knew to tell me, they weren't aligned. So that's one of the big challenges that comes in an evergreen course that people often set aside because they figure these instructions are clear. As experts, sometimes we forget what a beginner needs to know because we get to this assumptive point about some of our content. So we may leave something out that a novice isn't going to get. So always, always, always test your instructions. It's basic, but it's really important. And it trips people up all the time. And I think it's one reason why the completion rates aren't that great for e-learning.
That makes sense. And if the completion rates aren't there, then people aren't feeling like they're getting the full value of it. And they're not the raving fans that we want to have. And I think some of that goes into another thing you talk about in the book that I think is really brilliant. We've all heard about repurposing. Very important thing to do. And we talk about that in our Stark Raving Entrepreneurs to make sure that you're going to have the audio here and then this video here or this clip there, et cetera. But you talk about something that I think is as important, if not more important than that, and that's purposing. Tell us a little bit about what you mean by that.
Well, it goes back to the quote from Stephen Covey about begin with the end in mind. So if you think about, I have this program and I want to deliver it in 3 different formats. I want to go and I want to deliver it in person somewhere. And I want to deliver it on Zoom. And then I want to have an evergreen version because then you've got different options for people. So when you're planning the course, let's just say we're going to put this into, got to do math now, 4 columns. So the first column could be, here's the content that I'm going to cover. Then the second column is going to be, what types of exercises and activities am I going to use when I do this in person? And then the second column, then now we're at the third column. So if on Zoom, how do I modify it to have it work on Zoom? And then the final column, how do I modify it so that it'll work in an evergreen format? So if you think ahead, what that does is it allows you, when you're going to do the recording part, let's say on Zoom, you can be strategic and put in where the breakpoints are going to be between lessons, which allows you to then, you can stop, smile at the camera, take some questions, smile again, and then you have a clean place to edit. So you have a better chance of being able to repurpose your recordings if you're thoughtful and you think it from a pre-purpose angle. Like, how is this all going to work? How is it going to fit together? You can save yourself a ton of time, and there's not as much of a risk of having content that's not going to be usable. Now, when you're on Zoom, we all know people come off mute when they shouldn't. They might do it when you're like dropping your favorite line.
That happens.
And you might, because I was doing something and all of a sudden I hear somebody in the background, they're talking about what kind of rice they wanted for lunch. Well, in my mind, I'm like, well, how many varieties are there that they said? But it was very disruptive. And then I had to get back on track. So that's a piece of content that probably won't be repurposed.
Yeah, exactly, because we can change back and forth depending on what we need to do, and we can do that. Now, one of the things that you talked about is the process. Again, I don't want to go super in depth on that, but to share some of the things that are there of what you've done. So we're going to use this wonderful thing of sharing screen so we can let you see what's going on here. And you've got the 5 steps here: the project scope assessment, discovery, design blueprint, content creation, and then implementation. Tell us a little bit about that design blueprint, what that is, and I know in the book, you give some beautiful details of what to do and how to do that. Tell us a little bit about that and why that's important.
So the design blueprint, the name comes from, really, if you think about architecture, you're going to have a blueprint before you're going to build the house.
Yep.
So you think about having a design blueprint before you want to build anything. And the purpose of that document is to define, what are you going to teach and how are you going to teach it? And I worked this way for many, many years when I was doing a lot of work in the corporate world, and it still holds true today, is we'll create this design document and we get it to the level of specificity so that if you want to bring in other people to help you, they can. So these are the types of slides that we're going to need, and we want these types of graphics on the slide to convey the message. So somebody then could come in after you. They could go out, they could do the research for the graphics and come back and say, here's what I found. Is this kind of fit with where you're going? Yes, no, or maybe. It gives you clarity. And that is so important. Again, back to shiny object syndrome. If you're really clear on, this is what I'm going to cover, and this is how I'm going to cover it, and this is what I need to cover it, you stay focused. Yep. Then if some new idea comes in, you consider and you go, does this fit with where I'm going? If yes, sure, bring it in. If no, set it off to the side. Because there's this desire, I think, sometimes to put too much into a program. Somebody one time referred to this as too muchness. So it's
exactly. A good way to put it. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Well, as you're watching this right now, people are watching this right now, and you're thinking to yourself, hey, I'm a content creator. I like what Nancy is saying. It makes a lot of sense. You want to look at this book as a really good tool to get. That's going to help you walk through it very carefully, step by step, in an easy, understandable, written in plain English. And she makes sure that it's right there, so that you're getting what you need. Nancy, if you were talking to a person who's looking at content creation and they want to do better, what are some of the major mistakes that you would warn them to stay away from that people are making today in content creation?
I think that one of the biggest mistakes that people are still making, because there's no tolerance, or very little tolerance for it anymore, is just taking your webinar recording and putting a video intro on it and an outro on it, and then it's 45 minutes. And oftentimes the video can be kind of flat because it's usually somebody's on camera or somebody's doing the screen share in Zoom. So it lacks a lot of interest. Because when you think about it, we've been consuming content in a visual way for a very long time. And our brains have been conditioned to scenes changing very quickly. The camera shot changes. there's a close-up.
Exactly. Or
Right.
as we're doing here, going back to gallery view and then going to speaker view. That's
Yes.
what we're doing right now. Those of you watching this, that's what we're doing with Zoom. We're able to go back and forth because there's a reason. Your brain's going, hey, something just changed. We got
Something's
to pay attention
changed.
to this.
So we're exactly, we're used to, if we are people that are consuming things, if we are bringing it in a visual way, think a movie, a TV show, a news show, a commercial. Things are constantly changing. And one of the big game changers for me last year, which I got with your guidance, was really bringing in Ecamm and a Stream Deck, which leveled up everything that I was doing live. And I've encouraged everybody that I work with, you need to get on this train. But I also discovered that it streamlined my ability to create video, because I was doing the work on the front end by having however many scenes that I was going to go between, so I could keep moving back and forth. And just by pushing a button, the change is instant. So there's no fumbling around. There's no, hey, can you see that?
Exactly. It makes it so much easier. So that's Ecamm, a great little tool, works on Mac computers. There are other tools out there that do it for Windows, et cetera. But I think the point is, as a content creator, be open to looking at some tools, see what's available and see what might be the right thing for you at that time. Well, Nancy, before we let you go, I want to go back over here to the screen and look at what is available here in your book, where you said in the conclusion, you have something I think is very good. You say the key to a great course is great design, and the keys to a great design are to determine what your target audience needs and wants, and to make a direct connection to how you are uniquely qualified to teach them what they need to know to be successful. Tell us a little bit about that. I think that's just a golden gem to wrap up the book.
Well, everything comes down to solid design. And my perspective is that is the missing link in what a lot of people are producing now. They've got great content, but they don't take that moment to step back and say, what is the best way for me to deliver this to have the most impact given the tools that I currently have? And it all comes to, when the pandemic started, people just rushed to push stuff out and didn't stop and think about what is the impact. Because you put something out there, it can stay out there for a really long time, and it can impact your brand. That's the part I think that we forget about. This is a reflection of you and what you know and what makes you different. And granted, we do not have the budgets to create things like a la Steven Spielberg. I'm not suggesting that, but really think about what can you do to make it more interesting and engaging. And that comes down to thinking through what's the process from that opening screen all the way through to the end. What's the experience? Actually, experience is a better word. What's the experience going to be like?
That is very good. What's the experience going to be like? Well, we have had a wonderful experience talking with you, Nancy, and putting that together. And thank you on behalf of all of us content creators who are wondering what to do, how to do it. Thank you for giving us a way to bundle our brilliance and put it together in a great way. When we're not going to let you get away, not telling us how we can get the book and how we can get in touch with you. If someone says, hey, I want to find out a little bit more, I want to find out about having her coach me. Nancy's got some wonderful programs to help you, real world stuff, how to do it, put that together and to get to know more. Nancy, how can they get in touch with the book and then with you?
Well, the book is on Amazon, and probably the easiest way to get there is to just go to Amazon and search for Bundle Your Brilliance. It's the only thing that comes up with that title. And I'd be happy to arrange to get all the links for you to put in any notes that you might have. And if people want to reach me, the best way to reach me is to email me at nancy@nancygiere.com. And Giere is spelled Giere. And I'll be happy to have a conversation. I work with people one-on-one. I work with people in groups. And I'm getting ready to launch a course that's going to be kind of exciting. So the online course creator will finally have her own online course. I have a gap in my schedule now where I can actually build it out. I've been so busy helping other people that my own courses had to take a back seat. So now that the
Understood.
book is done, I need a new project.
Well, we love the book. It's great. I read it twice. It is that good. And I can use it now for the content that I'm creating to go back and say, okay, I need to do this step. And it fills in the gaps. Even for someone who's been creating content for a long time. For me, I've
Thank
been
you.
doing it literally since I was in second grade, which were a few years ago.
A few years
And
ago.
do it then.
And and Terry, there's downloads of all the different checklists and tools that I use, and they're in
Yes.
a format there that people can actually work in. It's not a PDF that you're gonna have to convert and do some funky stuff with. It's just all right there and very easy to use, because I just wanted to make it easy for people so they really could show up as brilliant as they are.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for doing that. And Nancy, thank you for being with us here today. We really appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome.
And for those of you that are watching this, think about what we just saw. You just saw someone who really knows this stuff with degrees in how to create content and do it the right way so that it's psychologically received in the right way and people like it. And that means this is good for business. So do yourself a favor, pick up Nancy's book, take a look at it, follow it. The checklists there are there. It'll help you fill in the gaps that you might not know what you don't know. And she can help you with that. I'm Terry Brock with Stark Raving Entrepreneurs. Thanks for being with us today.